What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 2024 draft recap video. It's good to be back. Took a little hiatus raising them kids, but figured I could fit in a quick recap video for this year. So we'll do the same thing we did before. We'll go through team by team in draft pick order, do just a smidge of post-draft analysis, and then we'll give each team a real NFL comp, and we'll use that real NFL team Super Bowl odds to simulate the season. And I think when we did this last time, the results were spookily accurate. I think it got like the toilet bowl matchup and the championship matchup exactly. It was pretty on point. So pay attention. This could foretell our season. But yeah, so we'll go ahead and get started. The number one overall pick, Mike Melson. So our lone remote drafter this year, Mike sadly couldn't be there in person to make it a full 10 drafting on the big board. But he did well with his pre-draft rankings list, got pretty much every pick he wanted at each round. Took running back at number one overall, which I think was a smart choice considering how scarce the bell cow backs are this year. So went with Bijan over Breece. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out since they were neck and neck in a lot of the rankings. Also got super hyped, uber upside quarterback in Anthony Richardson. Basically a big running back who can sort of throw, and he's on every breakout list. And Trey McBride at tight end. He already had Michael Pittman at wide receiver. Got Devonta Smith, go Birds. So this team doesn't really have any holes on offense. Much improved, of course, has to be much improved, being the toilet team of last year. So their NFL comp is the Atlanta Falcons. Makes sense. Mike's got Bijan as a centerpiece of his team, but also figured the Falcons absolutely atrocious on offense last year. Desmond Ridder, he was terrible back there. Every Falcons receiver felt that pain in fantasy football. And now every Falcon is on every sleeper list that you can find with Kyle Pitts and Drake London and Bijan. So Falcons should be a lot better this year. And Mike is on that same upward trajectory where he should at least be able to reach the middle tier of those standings and maybe catapult into the playoffs with a lot of potential on his roster. All right, so the number two pick was my team, Sam Laporta Está Abierta, which I think is a perfect Seinfeld reference / pun name for a fantasy team. I don't care what John says about Spanish grammar. I can't wait to shout this at the TV at Jared Goff all season long.
La puerta está abierta. La puerta está abierta.
And there's not much to say about this team other than it is absolutely stacked. I had an extra 5th round pick and 2 extra 2nd round picks to start, which turned into Jalen Hurts, Derrick Henry, and David Montgomery. So getting spotted those dudes on your team to start is pretty helpful. So yeah, not much to say. This team is loaded. Mark Andrews is my backup tight end, for goodness sakes. So I anticipate the ire of the league this year and a lot of hate coming my way.
Maybe someone's don't like me, but because maybe I'm too good. I don't know why.
So my NFL comp is going to be the San Francisco 49ers, and I picked them because they are a pretty loaded roster. They have very good odds for the Super Bowl. I think the second best odds behind the Chiefs. But another reason why it's kind of fitting is because going into the draft, I wanted no part of the Brandon Ayuk drama. But instead in the draft, I got every part of the Brandon Ayuk drama. I picked Deebo Samuel. I got Brandon Ayuk. There's rumors he's going to be traded to the Commanders. I have Terry McLaurin. So the 49ers are dealing with some drama right now with Trent Williams and with Brandon Ayuk. And that situation has the potential to implode my team. So even though it looks good, I could be in trouble depending on how that goes. So I will be glued to the 49ers news between now and the start of the season. Come on, Brandon Ayuk. Sign that contract and let's play. So the number 3 overall pick was Pat, and he started the draft maybe a little bit behind the rest of us, since he has, we'll say, only so-so keepers in Mike Evans and Tank Dell, and he was already losing an 11th round pick back from keeping old Leonard Fournette back when he could still run before he put on all those extra pounds. And by the looks of it, would probably take a little while to get back into playing shape.
I want my baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back ribs.
Excuse me.
Chili, baby back ribs.
So Pat had the double wide receiver keeper, and with his first pick, he went with Tyreek Hill, which was some good value, but starting the draft with 3 receivers, he then had to get a little bit desperate at later in the draft at running back with Joe Mixon in the 2nd round. He also, you gotta love, he had faith in his team, though he took the Caleb Williams, Keenan Allen stack. So Pat's got a lot riding on the Bears this year.
I like the Bears.
Sure. Yeah, I gotta go with the bear bus. The bear bus.
So it's only fitting that Pat's NFL comp is gonna be the Bears. And it's fitting on multiple levels because A, his team, go Bear Bus, but then B, the strength of the Bears and of Pat's team, the wide receivers, by far. Wide receivers is loaded. The Bears got Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, 1st round draft pick Rome Odunze. So they're looking loaded there. But the question mark is going to be quarterback and running back. Will that be enough to carry the offense? And if Caleb Williams turns out to be the truth, both the Bears and Pat could be headed to Titletown. We shall see. All right, so next up, the number 4 overall pick was Griff. And I checked, interestingly enough, last year Griff had the number 4 overall pick in the draft and went with Saquon Barkley, who then finished as RB13. Not great. Griff had the 4th overall pick in the draft again this year and picked Saquon Barkley again.
Fool me once. Shame on you. If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
So we'll see if Saquon can have greater draft return this year. He's on. He has a great start being on the Eagles this year. Go Birds. And Griff definitely had a plan going into the draft of hitting RB hard. He had 3 of his first 4 draft picks were running backs. So he made sure that was the foundation of his team. And so I'm going to give him the NFL comp of the Indianapolis Colts. I feel like the Colts offense is totally based on the rushing attack. Jonathan Taylor is a beast, and Anthony Richardson, as we said before, is just basically a running back who can sort of throw passes. So both Griff and the Colts are saying we are going to run the ball all the way to the championship. But we will see, because with running back, there's so much variation with injury, and different guys come forward and turn out to lead the team in rushing. So if he hits on those running backs, Griff's in great shape. All right, so the number 5 overall pick was Drew, and he had a great draft. Number 1 pick was A.J. Brown. Go Birds. He should be a beast at wide receiver this year, and a lot of touchdowns in that potent offense. Same goes for his number 2 pick, Lamar Jackson, a really good value in the 2nd round. And then his probably favorite pick on his roster that I saw was getting the Lamar Jackson Zay Flowers stack. Zay Flowers could take a huge leap forward this year as the Ravens' number 1, and he was a big-time sleeper for me. I had him circled and ready to go, and I was just 2 picks after Drew, and he stole him.
That's all I needed. That's all I needed for him to do that, and it became personal with me.
So I'm a little bitter about that, but I will still give Drew the greatest compliment and the greatest comp possible. He gets the Philadelphia Eagles. I decided that would be a good comp for him because he went with it with A.J. Brown over Justin Jefferson with his first pick. A bold choice, but I like having your passes thrown by Jalen Hurts instead of Sam Darnold. And the Eagles' offense should be scoring all day. And much like the Eagles, Drew, solid at running back, solid at quarterback, a very strong receiving core, and not much happening at tight end, which is also like the Eagles. Dallas Goedert might not need to do much this year, and I cannot remember who Drew has at tight end. I think Njoku. So Yeah, so Drew's team looking good, looking potent, and has the potential to go off each week. All right, next up, the number 6 overall pick, Negs. And Negs has the scariest receiving core of all time with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamar Chase, and Chris Olave. So real quick, we need to have another league-wide vote and change to non-PPR because that's going to be tough to beat each week. This team also quarterback looking good for Superflex got Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. So he's got the Burrow Chase stack. And the only question mark, the perennial question mark at tight end, Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts, who knows? He's again on every sleeper list. Somehow each year Kyle Pitts has been a huge sleeper. Every single year he has been a huge letdown. And then the next year, he is a huge sleeper again.
You can't keep getting away with it! You can't keep getting away with it!
So I'm going to give Neg's team the comp of the Bengals. It makes sense. He's got the Burrow Chase stack, but also fitting because Neg's team had a meh year last year, but it's super talented. And this year, there's a ton of upside. He'll probably compete for a title, much like the Bengals. He'll go from being middle of the road last year, turn around, and this year, watch out. So next team, very dangerous this year. All right, so the number 7 overall pick was Cole in this year's draft, and he entered the draft without a 2nd or 5th round pick. Tough stuff. He tried to recoup a pick, but somehow none of us took him up on his very generous offer of Dalton Kincaid. Cole was trying to do us a favor, and for some reason, none of us took him up on that. But Cole came into the draft really in a tough spot, again, losing those picks, and so you knew there was going to be some spot on the roster that's going to be tough. And for him, it's running back. When the dust cleared post-draft, his RB2 is Najee Harris. His RB3 is Devin Singletary. His tight end is Brock Bowers. So Cole has a lot of fantasy hopes riding on the offenses of the Steelers, Giants, and Raiders.
You're gonna have to do better than that, Steven.
So Cole's comp is...
Raiders!
It is fitting. It makes sense because it is hard to see Cole's team competing this year, much like the Raiders. And much like the Raiders, quarterback is looking pretty weak. Running back is looking pretty weak. And he needs to hit on some bold picks, a la Jaden Daniels in the 4th round and Brock Bowers for Cole. So hopefully those rookies are lightning in a bottle. And, hey, it's fantasy football. You never know. If Cole hits on those picks, then losing a 2nd and 5th rounder won't hurt as bad if he makes up for it later in the draft. So Cole needs some help with his late round selections this year. Okay, the 8th pick in the draft was Fitz. And he had a good draft. His team is looking solid. But he had a bit of a strange one in that he had Tony Pollard as an 11th round keeper and decided to cut him.
Good, then get the hell out of my life. Who needs you? Beat it. Leave me alone.
But then he decides to draft him in the 8th round.
I'm sorry, babe. I didn't mean that.
So rarely seen when you have a team cut a player, a keeper, and then draft him earlier than his keeper round. But Fitz knew what he was doing because his team is looking solid. And looking at his roster, looking at how Fitz reacted to some recent NFL news, his comp is clear. And it's the team that he loves so much, even though he says he doesn't, who he centered his draft picks and keepers on, the Dallas Cowboys.
Move this man!
So Fitz has CeeDee Lamb, and he was just doing cartwheels in his living room, I'm sure, when it turned out that CeeDee Lamb signed that huge contract and is actually going to play. I play Fitz week 1, and I was praying that CeeDee Lamb was holding out for more money. But looks like Lamb will be playing week 1. Fitz drafted the Cowboys kicker because he just couldn't help himself. He wants as many Cowboys as possible. And also it fits because Fitz, I think, is a little weak at running back, and that's where the Cowboys are weak as well. They will probably throw a million times this year because that RB room of Zeke and Rico Dowdle won't be getting it done, I don't think. And Fitz has Raheem Mostert, Tony Pollard, Jerome Ford, and Ray Davis, and he is just praying that one of them turns out to be a gem. And if that's the case, watch out, Fitz has a real good shot at the title this year. All right, the number 9 pick was Jordan. Welcome to the league. Jordan had his inaugural draft, and he held his own. Well done. The roster looks very solid by his own admission. Very strong at wide receiver, but a little weak at quarterback. And I think he might have some draft regret when you look at the big board and see that in round 2, when it was Jordan's turn to draft, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson still on the board, but instead he went with Drake London.
I told you the Drake was bad. I hate the Drake.
And even with all that Kirk Cousins instead of Desmond Ridder hype, I think for Drake London to be worth that, he's going to have to exceed all expectations and then some, because it's going to be a struggle at quarterback for Jordan this year probably, whereas wide receiver is pretty deep. And Drake London hasn't done it yet. So we'll see if he can elevate himself into that top tier of wide receiver. So Jordan, we'll see how it shakes out. He's staring at Geno Smith and Bryce Young in the OP slot, which is pretty disheartening. So I'm going to give Jordan the comp of the Cleveland Browns. The Browns have a lot of really interesting pieces on offense and I guess defense. They have great defense too. But can the quarterback play carry him to the promised land? For the Browns, Deshaun Watson hasn't been great as a Brown, and Jordan is going to need someone at quarterback to take a step forward, especially playing Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson in that division. Also, the Browns fit because they traded everything to make a criminal the face of their franchise, and Jordan has fugitive Rashee Rice in his starting lineup, so works on many levels. There's a lot that goes into these NFL comps. So Jordan, we'll see how it goes. The Browns could compete, but it is going to be tough on them this year. All right, and your number 10 pick in this year's draft, our reigning champ, John Fornecker. And I have to say, Fornecker did well considering he only had 4 picks in the first 9 rounds, which is just shocking if you think about it. He traded away his 2nd and 5th round picks, but he also lost a 6th round pick when he cut DK Metcalf, and he also had Christian McCaffrey kept in the 1st. So, tough start to the draft, not many picks. And DK Metcalf actually turned out to be a pretty good value. He was a 6th round keeper for Fornecker. He was drafted this year in the 4th round. So actually, DK turned out to be good keeper value. Fornecker just didn't want him.
I don't know what went into that process. I met the criteria to be selected, but I wasn't.
And with so few picks, Fornecker did what he could do. He basically tried to get the band back together and get all his players from his championship squad, just as many dudes as possible. But that alone won't do it just because he didn't have enough draft picks this year. So the self-proclaimed king of the waiver wire is going to be adding and dropping and tweaking his roster all year long.
Click and go back this way. Boom, here. Click and go that way. Boom, that way. Click here and go back this way.
So Fornecker's NFL comp, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this is fitting because Fornecker was our champ last year. And the Steelers have won lots of Super Bowls. They got some trophies in the case, but they might be living in the past and reminding everyone, hey, remember that time we won the championship? Because both Fornecker and Steelers are relying on Russell Wilson at quarterback, and they need him to be elite. Russell Wilson is probably Fornecker's QB2 this year, which could get ugly. So he needs Russell Wilson to find a time machine and come out as 2015 Russell Wilson. Otherwise, they are relying on this version.
Be careful, though. It's spicy.
So Fornecker was the number 10 overall pick in the draft. He is number 10 in the ESPN power rankings. He's number 10 in our rankings as well.
Jeez.
All right, so that does it for the draft recap analysis and NFL comps. Now on to the simulation, and I'm going to see if I can do this right and overlay the comps here. And that gives you the Super Bowl odds for each team. And you can see that it's kind of split up into tiers. It looks like me, Negs, Drew, and Fitz are kind of tier 1 in terms of likelihood. Then you got Mike, Pat, and Jordan in the next tier. And then Fournette, Griffin, Cole have a very small chance. But chip in a chair, you never know. So that's actually pretty close to the ESPN rankings as well. If you saw the ESPN League Power rankings, I'll put that in this list too, so that you can kind of see everything's pretty in line. So, all right, I'm going to use those odds and randomly generate our finishing order. So here we go. And it is the worst possible news because sadly, my Cowboys comp won, which is devastating. I'm now terrified that this will be a cursed season and only bad things will come of it. But we have Fitz beating me in the championship. We have Negs continuing his very unlucky run of super highly rated, talented teams bowing out early in the playoffs. We have Cole beating Fournette in the Toilet Bowl, currently the number 9 and 10 teams in ESPN's rankings. So that makes sense. And it would continue Fournette's amazing streak of winning either the championship or the toilet for the 4th straight year. So that's fun. The ultimate boom or bust team. All right, so that does it for the draft recap. Congrats to our future champ Fitz, and condolences to the future toilet holder John Fournecker. So yeah, glad to make a video again. It's been a while. I just now need to log on to my work computer and make sure I haven't been fired in the meantime. But yeah, action starts in just a few days with some really great matchups. Thursday is Ravens-Chiefs, and then a little Friday night football in Brazil. Weird stuff for the Eagles home opener against the Packers. So that'll be a great game too. So all right, good luck everybody, and looking forward to an awesome season.